Throughout this gospel passage, there are numerous references to Satan. As far as we can see, people are even claiming that Jesus is performing his miracles by the work of the devil. Did I ever tell you about the time that I took part in an exorcism? Let me tell it for those who have not heard it. Many years ago, I was in Rome. Who has not heard this? Who has not heard this? A lot of people haven't heard it. Okay. It's a true story. I was in Rome a number of years ago, and I was at a conference with priests, and one of the priests was involved with exorcism. Exorcism means to cast devils out of people who are possessed by a devil. He said to me, we are going to have an exorcism performed tomorrow morning in one of the churches in Rome. Would you like to come? Well, I was nosy. But I was also scared. I don't really go for a lot of this devil stuff. Because he's real. I know he's real. I felt him numerous times. I know it. So, 6 o'clock in the morning, we took a car and we went to the outskirts of Rome. And there was a church there, naturally a very old church. But we were escorted into a side door where there was like almost a small room in the back of the church. And it was filled with, I say about 20 people, maybe 20 people. And a number of people were just sitting around the room on chairs, and they were praying. I had no idea who the exorcist was going to be, but lo and behold, it was a very famous exorcist. His name was Father Gabriel Amroth. He was the official exorcist of Rome. He died in 2016. And he wrote a book, just so you might want to follow up on this. We'll talk about more books in a little while. The Devil is Afraid of Me. And I went into the room, and I was sitting down with some of the other folks. And a man was brought in, and he was they laid him on a table. And Father Amroth began the rite of exorcism. It is an official rite of the church. It still exists today. Now, the only people that could perform this exorcism are those priests who are assigned to perform exorcism by the bishop. And for the most part, we don't even know who they are, but the bishop discerns that this priest is holy enough to combat Satan. So you know right away, it's not me. Anyway, the ritual began, and the man on the table became more and more agitated and began screaming and uttering some vile words and began to froth at the mouth. All of a sudden, his eyes rolled to the back of his head. This was just like the movie. And Father Amroth points to me and he says, and they're saying, he wants you. He wants you. I didn't want to, I tell you, I didn't want to do it. So the priest that was with me said, come on, both of us got to go up there around this bed like they had this man on. It was almost like how do you say it? Like a bed that it raises up pretty high, it's like one of those things you'd see in a hospital room, in the emergency room, something like that, And there's a name for them, isn't there? A gurney? Gurney, yeah, gurney, that's what it looked like. And the man tried to get off the table, and he was becoming violent, and he wanted us to hold him down. And my gosh, was he strong. There were four of us, one priest on each leg, and then priest on each shoulder, and Father Amroth continued the prayers of exorcism, and the man became more and more violent and screaming in vile language, and the foaming and the eyes rolling back and the whole deal. And all of a sudden, he relaxed, and it ended. And Father Amroth said, he is filled with many devils, demons. The prince of all demons, at the bottom of it all is Satan himself, but he has his minions, and therefore an exorcism is not just a one-time event, but it takes place over a period of time, a number of moments for the person possessed to return and to have the devils cast out of him. I was there, I saw it. Okay. The devil is real. The devil at times does take possession of people. Now, we don't know why he chooses certain people. We don't know why he chooses certain people. And there are certain theories as to why he chooses certain people, how he takes possession of someone. Some have the theory that people come in contact with the occult, OCC, ULT, Ouija boards, and fortune tellers and tarot cards, and some feel that there's an entrance into the person via those instruments of the occult, which are condemned by Scripture. Old Testament does not approve, as a matter of fact, condemns the occult. So too does the church in the New Testament. Do not get involved with the occult. Some think it's just simply by some literature that a person may have read. They may have read something on the devil, on the occult, and that way the devil finds a way into their lives. Or just people who maybe are in an evil situation, their home life, maybe something that happened in their childhood, but there's a way for the devil to get in. And sometimes we just don't know. Okay, now, let me talk to you about some books that might help you out, all right? First of all, a lot of people are going to say, well, Father, you're mentioning these books, but we can't remember them. We're going to go home and, what do we do? All right. This homily is going to be on Action for Life, YouTube, Florida. Action for Life, YouTube, Florida. And you can watch it, and then you can write down the names of the books if you're interested in doing that. So we already talked about Father Amroth, The Devil's Afraid of Me. There's a few more books by him. Okay. Second one is written by a former, well, he's now deceased, priest, Jesuit priest, named Malachi Martin. And it's called Hostage to the Devil. Hostage to the Devil. And there are 4 or 5 cases in there that he was involved with that had to do with demonic possession and exorcism. I would take a look at it. I would say it's probably about 30 or 40 years old by now. Right? The second book that I would recommend, this is really going to be the third book I'm going to recommend to you, is by a man named M. Scott Peck. M. Scott Peck. He's since deceased, but he was a psychiatrist, MD psychiatrist, and he became interested in evil and exorcism because he was an atheist. He was an atheist. And he was dealing with people on different levels, and the first level that he began to see was some people certainly had some kind of a mental psychiatric problem that was treatable by therapy or by drugs. Second type of people were bad people, just bad people. And we might say, well, these are the sociopaths of society. And he said, you could get a grasp of who they were and at least a reason for doing what they did, evil without a conscience. He said, but he discovered there was something more, and he just didn't know what it was. And he said, he finally came to the conclusion that these people were possessed by the devil. It's not just that they did bad things, but they were bad people. And I knew some people, my lifetime, that did everything right. Everything right. They checked all the boxes, but they were bad people. And it was like those cartoons that we used to see where, it's a bad person walking by with a black hat on and a black coat on, and As they walk by, the dog's tail goes down and the flowers wilt. Okay? This, he said, was evil. Now, he was an atheist. He became a Christian and he joined the Episcopal Church. He has since passed away. Which brings me to another point before I get to the last book. I can remember a few years back, I got a phone call from one of the non-Catholic churches here in town. And the pastor said, I'm going to send one of my parishioners over to see you. I think that this may be a case for exorcism. That's a non-Catholic pastor. Person did come to see me, and I didn't think the case, as far as I could see, measured up to an exorcism, because to perform an exorcism is quite a difficult task insofar as what we must go through before we can perform an exorcism. It means that we have to have a person who is going to undergo medical examination, psychiatric evaluation, a person who is willing to put themselves through the exorcism, just like that man that was on the table writhing and shouting and eyes rolling back. And therefore, an attorney has to be involved to say that this man or this woman came to this of their own free will and that there would be no legal implications for the exorcist or for the church that he represents. So I didn't think it rose to that level where I would have to go through that process, but there is something called prayers for deliverance, and many of the non-Catholic churches have these prayers for deliverance, and we can pray over those people and pray that they are delivered from the evil one. And some of those prayers are very simple, which I used, the prayer to St. Michael the Archangel, and also the Our Father. The prayer says, deliver us from evil, or deliver us from the evil one. So if you feel like you come in contact with evil, you have those prayers of deliverance to rely on. And, Jesus gave us these prayers, but he also gave us exorcism, because the devil is, in fact, real. And it's only through prayer that we can combat the devil. The last book is called, it's by a man named Thomas Gallagher, called Demonic Foes. Dr. Gallagher is a certified psychiatrist. He's head of psychiatry in Westchester County, New York Hospital. And he also teaches at St. Joseph's Seminary in Dunwoody. He teaches the seminarians about exorcism. And his book is fascinating insofar as what an exorcist must look for in order for them to proceed with the rite of exorcism. And once again, knowing that there is a difference between someone who is mentally, emotionally ill, and also someone who is possessed by an evil spirit. So I bring this out to you today because we live in a world today where people think that, well, the devil doesn't exist, or it's superstitious. We read the gospel. How many times in the gospel today? Jesus is talking about the devil and how only the strong man, see, he says it right in there, only the strong man can overcome Satan. Who's the strong man? Jesus is the strong man. He can overcome the evil one. And let me just tell you one more, just short story. From time to time, I get called to a hospital, okay? I had it in New York, have it over here, had it in Michigan. Sometimes the hospital staff gets the feeling that something is not just right. And they don't think it's just a medical problem or a psychiatric problem or some kind of psychosis that is induced by drugs. They'll say to me, Father, there's something wrong in there. It's not something that we feel that we can deal with. Could you go in there? And I'm There was one case, true story, doctor called me up. He says, Father, the lights are going on and off in this room. The machines are going on and off in this room. There's no reason for it to happen. It's not happening in the rest of the hospital. And the person is babbling in some language that none of us have ever heard. Could you come over? Okay. Doc, you stand right behind me. Get a nurse right behind me. And we went in there and we prayed the Our Father and the prayer to St. Michael, the Archangel. And it stopped. The same thing has happened with patients who we can find no other reason for their behavior other than they seem to be possessed by an unclean spirit. And so it's real. The books I recommended to you, they're real. They're backed up by psychiatry, by medical doctors, by the legal profession. But most of all, the biggest backup we have is the gospel of Jesus Christ, where he says, I'm the strong man, and a house divided cannot stand. And once Jesus attacks Satan, his kingdom, Satan's kingdom, comes to an end. God love you.